Welcome everyone. We joined Covalent and Klaytn developer webinar. Today we are very happy to have Neo with us. Neo is the head of the technology advocacy at Klaytn Foundation, and previously he was the blockchain lead at the BUIDLERs group, where he led the development and engineering effort of blockchain initiatives in value chain traceability and digital asset development across a group of companies. And he was also the director of the technology at Oxford Blockchain Society. So Neil, very happy for you to join us today. Sorry about the technical error just now.
No worries. Laban, thanks for having me today, and also was really excited to join this Covalent and Klaytn co-event right here with the audience.
Awesome. So today we have got quite a lot to cover for our developer community. First of all, Neil will take us through what is the Klaytn ecosystem and what are the tech stack that it has. And then I'll be taking you through how you can query on-chain data on Klaytn network for you to build your dApps if you're a developer. So this webinar is mostly developer focused for developers, but if you want to know more about the Klaytn ecosystem, this is for you as well. And finally, we'll be taking you through how you can build on the Klaytn ecosystem. What are some of the opportunities, the SDKs, if there are any, as well as the grants and funding. All right,
Lovely.
Neil, please take it away.
Should we share the screen, or because
I think you could share your screen.
Oh yeah, I'll just take it away then. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen right now?
Yep, it's good.
Oh, lovely. I think Laban just mentioned this is the agenda that we're gonna go with for this webinar. And so we get started with what is Klaytn then. So obviously we have been hearing, or maybe some of the audience haven't heard of Klaytn before, obviously, but we are indeed one of the top 20 layer 1 project right there in the market. So a bit about Klaytn. Really, Klaytn is the blockchain arm for Kakao. So Kakao is one of the biggest tech giant right there in the world, and as of the market cap, I think it changes every single day, but then roughly you have these ideas of the tech giants about 100 billion USDs right there out there in the market. So one of the biggest in Asia, one of the biggest in the world as well. And we are majorly based in Korea, Kakao, and obviously, after that, we have these Klaytn being found, initiated by the Kakao group, and further down the line being developed by our sister company called Ground X, which is also a tech subsidiary company right there under Kakao. And then, all these years later, 3 years later, is the whole thing. I mean, the Klaytn blockchain got, transfer the ownership to the Klaytn group, which is, we have these kind of Klaytn Foundation just to help driving, this global adoptions aspect of the Klaytn blockchain. But normally, when you have have a look about the Klaytn blockchain, so some key points you can just take away. What Klaytn is actually, when it comes to decentralized exchange, we have about 20 billion market cap right there, and for the DeFi ecosystem, we have about like 2 billion USD in the total value look. NFT marketplace, when it comes to that, we are actually one of the 3 major blockchains out there. The OpenSea actually integrate with us, so you majorly see different NFT right there on the OpenSea's marketplace, and the NFT from Klaytn is actually one of those. We have the digital wallet. Clips is actually integrated with our Kakao Talk, and Kakao Talk is actually having the industrial, I would say, the coverage of about 97%, 98% right there in the market, local market of the audience in Korea. We are also one of the joiner right there for the pilot of the Bank of Korea CBDC. So you can see CBDC of Bank of Korea is actually using the private versions of the Klaytn blockchain. But this is just like the overview of Klaytn is Klaytn about it. But really, we would like to get into the Klaytn blockchain. That's the reason why we're having, this webinar, right? So you can look at Klaytn blockchains. Actually, we have the mainnet we call Cypress. It's actually launched back in June 2019. We are indeed server-centric hybrid structures with it, meaning that we have the mainnet, which is the main chain that we call, plus individual service chain as a side chain that's actually attached to our, the main chain. So why is service centric? Because we are on a kind of IBFT as our consensus algorithm. We have the Istanbul with us. And obviously, the whole thing was a gift fork from Ethereum back in 2018. And a year later, we released our mainland Cypress. So the mainnet Cypress right here, we've got a 1 second block generations confirmation. To be honest, just a 1 second block time that we talk about right here. So instant finality that we are talking about right here. And with that, with the IBFT and also some kind of proof of stake, because we do have different, validators, and it's actually from different governance council member, they're running their node on our main chain. So that's the reason why we do have this kind of like a very specific combinations right here to reach. As you can see, the governance council is right there, and we do have, Binance, Netmarble, LG is actually running their node right there on our main chain. And with that proof of stake, this kind of concept, and also the IBFT that we have right there as a consensus algorithm, we do have 4,000 transactions per second right here. We talk about for the mainnet, but the side chain that you see, like game chain, like the metaverse chain, all this kind of side chain, which we call service chain internally, is actually at least hitting at least 10K TPS transaction per second out there. So we would just imagine the whole thing is actually service centric, hybrid. We have also like a scalable BFT right here. I talk about that's going to is actually the gift fork from Ethereum back in 2018. The whole thing that we have right now is actually based on, our VM. We call it Klaytn VM, but to be honest, we're still, mainly the function is actually based on EVM. So we are EVM integrate, and we are also supporting Ethereum, this kind of equivalence that we have right here. We have our own unit account type and transaction model, which you're going to have a look later. But this is roughly what we have. Low gas price, deterministic gas fee right there, because we have the fixed gas prices right there as well. So I have mentioned a bit right there in my previous slide about the actual architectures that we have. So you think about the Klaytn blockchains actually have a very, very special structures right here. We have something we call the endpoint node. So for the developers actually familiar with building with different web3.js or ether.js, we have our own kava.js right there, just for our own case right there. And we do have the endpoint node, serving as a OPC modules for these dApps from the application layer, as you can see in the yellow area, actually interact with the endpoint node. And then we further have like a proxy node for the purposes of, caching the new block data. And then all the way down the line, you see the core node. The core node is actually the validated node. If somebody like audience, if you're familiar, if you have been running proof of authority right there with your own service chain, or maybe with your own permission chain, core node is indeed the validated node that we talk about right here. And core node is only run by a specific, I would say specific, but meaning that it's actually the governance councils. We have 33 members at the moment. We plan to have at least 50 by the end of this year, and they're all run by big corporations. And then the developers actually come in to contribute to the endpoint node, and to have this kind of I would say the economy right there on the endpoint node. But then mostly for the core node, we're still run with the proof of stake concept. So these companies, they're staking a lot of amount right there just to run a validator node, which is a core node. And this is exactly what we have. So endpoint node, proxy node, and core node for the blockchain architectures that we have based on proof of stake right there. We have 1 second block time, meaning that instant finality that I mentioned before. Own account model, meaning that we actually enable multiple key pairs for single accounts. So essentially, with the transaction model that you can include multiple signatures in fields of the transaction. So normally you have different fields right there. So you can have different signatures fields right there available in one transaction body. So when you look at these from the security perspective, we have the on-chain, I would say the protocol level, we do enable the multi-signatures anyway. So this is one specific things for Klaytn, I would say. We don't have the problem about the dynamics or maybe about the dynamic gas price that we talk about right here. And that's the reason we have like a fixed gas fee. And we meant to do this because we would like to have the solutions for highly scalable use cases right there. And that's the reason why we have the fixed gas fee, and we have the whole thing's actually deterministic right there with us. And I'm not going to go further, but then I think the EVM equivalence and 2 API, we have that. So whatever that you will be building on, or you have been building right down the Ethereum ecosystem, things will be happening the same at Klaytn, because you will be able to select if you would like to work with the Klaytn side of it. For example, you can work with the Ether side or Klaytn side. That's totally fine for the Klaytn perspective right here. I mean, some of the time we have the Clay use case you can actually use, but also you can have like a ETH use case that you would like to use as well on our Klaytn API. I mean, the K4 one, that's totally fine. We all agree to have all these kind of equivalents that we would like to have. So about the Klaytn core dev stack right here, as I mentioned a bit right here, you see the people building the dev solutions right there on Klaytn. And we do provide the Ethereum dev tools and also Klaytn tools right here. So let's get started with the Klaytn specific part. We do have our the Clay namespace. That obviously through the JSON RPC that we have been building, we support the EVM plus. We have the pre-compiled contracts actually support. Basically, if you think about the low-level code, you know that when we have like a proxy pattern, you always see these kind of delegated core like that method that you can use. We also have the core method so that people can get to the pre-compiled contract map. And when you are having different versions of a smart contract, we do support the pre-compiled contracts so that will be running on different situations that we might have right here. So we have our own governance, rewards, consensus. But when you look at the Ethereum DAF2 that we support, what does it mean? So very simple. Like on the JSON RPC layer, we support the if namespace for every method that you have right there with your dApps or with your smart contract. We support the EVM versions of it, and currently I think things are keep updating, but we're keeping on track of it to support all the Ethereum equivalence parts that we would like to have, and also come down to the storage networks. It's just like a really, really brief diagram right here. But then the Clay support, the claim namespace that we have right here. So we do have our own features. So I would just want to cover that. We do have Ethereum equivalence parts as well. Briefly, ecosystem stack. So it was a core dev stack. So this is the core protocol that we support. On the core layers, we do support the Ethereum namespace because we would like to see so many use cases that could be built on ours, and vice versa. We would like to see so many Klaytn ecosystem could be built on Ethers, built on Ethereum ecosystem right there. And also down the line, just a bit kind of probably spoiler a note right here, you say we will be building something not just EVM based, but you can guess, if it's not going to EVM based, that could be Watson based, it could be WebAssembly, but we're looking to have some more canary networks right there around different virtual machines layer that we have, so that we can actually have more interoperable blockchain. And this is one of the goals that we're trying to hit right here. Quickly, ecosystem stack that we have, at Klaytn, wallet, we have so many applications right here. You see, when we go to a further slides right there down the line, after probably Laban will be giving some kind of update from the Covalent side. you will see there's so many ecosystem partners. Individually, they have their own use cases like that, actually build on the Klaytn ecosystem. But then, generally, what will be the use cases, Neo, right here? In terms of wallet, we have KaiCast is actually the substantiate one that we have at the Klaytn ecosystem, excuse me. We have the crafted space, different tools that we're trying to build down the line, the IPFS gateway, the open source wallet. In terms of the tools right here, crafted space, Clip partners, there's some kind of examples right here. As you can see, I mentioned the SDK, the RPC modules, Kava, Web3.js, quite similar, but still Kava is something really special just for the special cases for the K namespace that I mentioned right there. Kava is the one that to support as the RPC modules that we have. We have the KAS, what we call the KAS, which is Klaytn API services. We have different, not just NFT, but then like a token standard, KIP 1737. What does it mean? These are equivalents from the ELC that we have. And we have furthermore down the line for the token standard and also the KIP, which is the improvement proposal standard down the line. But we do support ELC 20, 721, 1155, and we're looking to support 998 and something that is only for the metaverse use cases that we have. We call it the dynamic NFT standard. So we are in the team, in the engineering team right now, we are looking to have this kind of standard up on the market so that our developers right there and the audience could actually use these kind of features that we have and start building on the Klaytn ecosystem. Oracle, we have been working with Chainlink because we believe the dynamic role, when I say dynamic role, meaning the dynamic NFT will be obviously based on the dynamic metadata. It won't be one static metadata, but that should be some segregation or categorizations like that for the NFT market very soon. Because if the whole thing would be metaverse enabled or integrate, the metaverse environment will be keep changing depending on what type of NFT that you like to have for use cases that you're going to go with. For example, if you go with avatar as an NFT, then we both know that the metadata won't be the same, won't be static, that will be dynamic. Meaning that will be some Oracle services that we need to look at, some solutions that we need to look at to actually fetch the data off-chain, on-chain, 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 or off-chain, off-chain. So, so that will be based on something that we need to have for the oracles anyway. So smart contract, just like the same EVM based, we call it KLVM, but you can think about we are completely EVM equivalent right here. We talk about. We have the Solidity, obviously building a smart contract as a language, Fiber support down the line, but mostly Solidity right now. Down the line, probably you can use Rust to actually build your smart contract if we're gonna ever expand to other ecosystem. Spoiler alert. And Truffle, Ganache, Hat, we all support right here on our ecosystem. Some notable project on Klaytn. I'm gonna go a bit quicker. Games, we have the MIO4, which is one of the PTE games made by WeMake. We have POQ, which will be building some cross game tokens on Klaytn as well. NFT I mentioned. We are one of the we are one of the major 3 chains that is actually integrated with OpenSea and other NFT marketplace down the line, but you can see there's actually a lot of NFT project. I think roughly 3,000 at least, but these are the top 10. You see Claves, you see the DSE mates. So many projects like that are there built based on the Klaytn ecosystem. Wallet, I mentioned a bit Clip or KaiCast. We have the MetaMask integration as well. And by the way, for the games, when you look at the Netmarbles, recently they kind of recently I think they announced a plan of working on the Marble X project. So Marble X is more like the blockchain ecosystem, their blockchain ecosystem, but built on our service chain, which is our side chain. And that will be having the interoperability actually enabled between the main chain and side chain already. So I think I missed that part when I introduced it. So when I have the main chain, server chain, so Neo, yes, you have the hybrid chain, but do they or are they even interoperable? Yes. So we do have our value transitions handling right there between the main chain and service chain. So these are the reasons why project like that Marble, they come in to build their own blockchain ecosystem on our service chain because the interoperability is already enabled between the main chain and service chain. But like other projects right here, I'm not going to go too deep, but so many notable projects. But some of these I have covered already. But I guess I would just hand it over to Klaytn on what is exactly the Covalent API.
Awesome. Thank you, Neo. That was really informative and lots of information. I'm sure for developers, if you miss any of that, you can just replay it as and when to get most of that again. What is the Covalent API, right? We at Covalent, we are an API service, data service provider. We give developers these very neat endpoints that allow you to query blockchain data, on-chain data from multiple networks. So we are currently indexing 27 blockchains, of which Klaytn is one of them. And we provide a single unified API, a standardized series of endpoints that allows you to get different kinds of data. For instance, balance data, transaction data, NFT data, log events, even across all different chains. So you don't have to write your own subgraphs or individual queries for each of the chains, right? Of course, there's many ways to get on-chain data, and our method really presents the standardized way for you to get the same kinds of data from each of the different chains. So, you can either query it within your code, or you can query it via the browser where there's no code required. We also have an analyst mode that you can use via our API reference docs that allows you to download everything in CSV or Excel format. It's really neat if you don't want to touch any code and you just want to download the data, you can, right? So that is us. Where do we fit into the crypto stack? Of course, like Neo mentioned, blockchains themselves, they're the host of most of the data. And then you have the nodes. In the context of Klaytn, you have the core nodes, right? And then you expose the data to your clients via the JSON RPC nodes. Covalent is almost like an additional data layer. We provide this service, especially if you need to query like on-chain data across different blockchains, right? We provide this service for you to simply switch one parameter within your query string to get all kinds of data across different blockchains. So as I mentioned, this is another way for you to get aggregated data across all the different blockchains for your deck. So let us take you through one example of how we can access Klaytn on-chain data with Covalent API. With all these tools, it is simply for you to make your life easier. How you want to integrate this into your debt, it's obviously a metrics that and a calculus that you would need to be making as a dev. Each have its pros and cons, obviously. These are all the endpoints that we have integrated with Klaytn. They are our Class A endpoints. And you can see there are 4 main categories of data that you can get: balances data, NFT data, transactions data, and what we call base data, which is, like get a block height, log events by contract address, and log events by topic hash, etc. So, standard stuff, standard on-chain data that you want to get for your debt, right? We have them all here. And you can access this via our API docs, right? API reference. And this is the URL. And if you select the drop down here from the default, which is Ethereum, to Klaytn mainnet, it will change the chain ID to 8217, which is Klaytn mainnet chain ID. And all your reference calls here will be made to the Klaytn mainnet. You can call Klaytn on-chain data directly through our API reference, right? Once you sign up for an API key, it's really convenient. So what can you build, right, with our API? You can build OpenSea. Each of these sections here can be built by one of the endpoints with our API, right? The first one is our NFT market cap endpoint. The second one, all these images can be pulled using the NFT metadata endpoint. Even these attributes, right? Like, oh, you want a ditto NFT or you want a mummy NFT, all these are also captured on chain and are extractable through the NFT metadata endpoint as well. Again, the individual page of OpenSea, each of these can also be queried from our API. Although this one, 6 and 9 here, they are actually stored on OpenSea centralized servers, so you wouldn't be able to access that. I think that one you might need the OpenSea API. Yeah. So you can build dashboards like Zappa, or to display your transactions, to display all your NFTs, to display certain trends, and also deposits within DEXs. That is supported by our XY equals to K endpoint, which is the endpoint that allows you to pull data from, DEXs. You can build things like Uniswap with our endpoint. Each of these sections are data that can be pulled. You can build wallets, Coinbase, right? You can build CoinGecko, sites that aggregates information about tokens. All these data can be pulled as well as DEX pairs. And just to give you an even more granular example of what kind of thing you'll be looking at if you're a dev, you go to this URL, right, this endpoint, and I've inputted an address from the Klaytn network. This address is from the Klaytn network. This is the chain ID. And you can see here, this is our get token balances for address endpoint. And this is the sample response. You see here that this address actually holds KDG. How much of it? This amount of it. You need to multiply that by the contract address, divide that, sorry, to get it in the standard unit. And then it holds the talent token and et cetera, right? I didn't screenshot the whole thing. Using another endpoint, with, in this case, the NFT token IDs. Most of the time, you have an NFT collection. You don't know what the token IDs are and who they belong to, right? So you query you just input the NFT contract address into the endpoint, and you get a response that tells you what all the token IDs are. Okay, so here I use the Klaytn Punks, which is an NFT stored on Klaytn network. And within each smart contract itself, data is often stored in its log events. So here I use the Klaytn Punk smart contract to get all the log events that that contract has emitted. So here you see that there is the decoded log event here, and it is a approval for all method. And it will basically return you all the log events within that smart contract. So it's really, really data rich. And your job as a developer would be to, of course, filter that data to see what you need, and then to display on a website or do something with it. And here in this particular endpoint, you need to specify the starting block and ending block. I took two arbitrary starting and ending blocks for this case. Okay, so that was an introduction to how you can query on-chain data using Covalent API, and in particular, how you can kind of get on-chain data from Klaytn network as well. It's another method for you to do that. And I'll hand it over to Neo again for him to take you through how you can build dApps on the Klaytn ecosystem.
Yeah, lovely. So thank you, Laban. You cover how on-chain data of the Klaytn use cases, or maybe the on-chain data on the Klaytn blockchain will be available right now. And people have so many ways of grabbing on-chain data. They have this event listener or filter. But I think via Covalent API is a very good way, a very convenient way for the developer just to grab on-chain data. So now that the on-chain data of Klaytn is up for grab, and obviously there's so many use cases people can build on the Klaytn ecosystem. You can, like you suggested, you can build your own coin gecko, OpenSea, and there's so many use cases people can actually just get to use the on-chain data now that this is being available for the developer. So back in the Klaytn ecosystem. So what do we support? How do we support the builders actually build something on the Klaytn 2.0? So recently we have something that we, obviously announced, which is the Klaytn 2.0, which is like an initiative. And we do have these kind of promises of packages that we would say for our developers actually try to onboard them to build on the Klaytn ecosystem. For example, you can look at the open source dev infra package that you will be seeing that we're going to have all these kind of open source toolings right there later, starting from Q2, I think next quarter that we're going to have. You will see so many, we have some layer 2 solutions you can think of, not roll up, definitely, not roll up on other ecosystem, but we won't say no to it. But there will be some better layer 2 solutions, which we had ready for the surface chain, which is the side chain. But we're going to kind of make it a bit better in terms of the scalability. We have the wallet, bridges that we're trying to build, a better bridge. We have the DEX, open source DEX right there. We have the Broad Explorer. So you can think about all these kind of SDK, smart contract library, oracles, and all these things. You think about this as like a package for the developers and help them and onboard them to actually building their use cases way that on the Klaytn blockchain. We would like to go with the high performing mainnet. We would like to have now, I think 4,000 TPS, not bad. But obviously, if you're trying to work with different metaverse or gaming or even create economy based use cases, we think we need to be a bit more high in terms of the scalability. We need to be more capable of doing this. We think about the community building. So you may be going back to the governance council as a developers. You may be scratching your head right there. It's like how could I be running my own node right there? How could it be a bit more open? So we would like to make it a bit more sensible for our developers, or even not just developers, but like the stakeholders that actually run their own node via the DAOs. So we might be having like a model, considering to have like a DAO of DAOs. That would be the governance council that we will be having going forward. But you can think about the direction is good. Like we are open, we are decentralized, but then we would like to be a bit more decentralized. Like decentralized or centralized, they're just comparative. Like you won't have a solutions that is completely decentralized. But my point right here is we're looking to be more decentralized, and I think this is a good direction for a blockchain as such as Klaytn or other layer 1 projects out there. One more thing, to be honest, when people would like to build, or builders, developers, they would like to build on Klaytn, incentives should be there, and we are looking to have a lot of incentive to support. We have the Klaytn Growth Fund. We have, like something we call the proof of contribution funding. We have so many dev initiatives out there. So let's say like the bulk bounty and challenges, and all these kind of things combining together. We would like to see there will be many developers that will be building on ours. But you remember I mentioned something when we first started the call. I said there's so many ecosystem partners. I'm just wondering, when I work on this now, just wondering what exactly the use cases all developers could be building other than those that you suggested right there in your previous slide, like NFT marketplace, like some kind of services that to display your NFT, something like this. For DeFi, we can think of the DEX, leading, aggregator, bridge, staking. These are the use cases that when you look at the right-hand side, so many brands right there, so many logos. These are the use cases, these logos or brands that actually our ecosystem partner, I would say, have been building. And when it comes to gaming, in-game asset, I mentioned that avatar, the game token, wallet, you can think about custodial, non-custodial, open source, not open source, private source. Yeah, we have so many types of it, but then nobody's actually thinking about how do you want to just offer a key fold services, like based on the Hashi Corp. I don't know. There's so many options that you could have for the fold. And also the signer, if you're not going to use the ETH signer, is there a better way? Is there any services that people would like to work out or spin up as a signer that you like to have a bit better for the wallet side? Two links, I mentioned that open source Block Explorer, but we do have other explorers. It doesn't mean we don't have one, just that we would like to just open source everything. We would like to have so many options like that on the table for our ecosystem partners and also our developers to pick to use. And this is a very good example why we have Covalent API, because if you're trying to access the on-chain data, we would like to have so many options available for our developers just to help and easier kind of onboarding them easier to build any kind of possible use case that they could ever build like that on the Klaytn ecosystem. So oracles, DFS, the distributed file storage, I mentioned that we would like to have our own Klaytn open source IPFS gateway like a daemon. We would like to build that. A unified API, which is Covalent, like you have that, but obviously there are so many use cases that can make use of the unified APIs as I suggested previously. NFT, I'm not going to mention much. Like I said, you got at least 3,000 projects right there on OpenSea, listed on OpenSea only. So not counting or not including all those that not listed on OpenSea. So my point was really like so many possibility with the NFT, and we believe the NFT, working with the metaverse will be dynamic standard, and we all know that metaverse is an extended layer. I would say extended utility for the NFT market. So you see so many digital collectibles right that is based on static, metadata. But down the line, really, there were so many use cases that I mentioned in other interviews already. Like for example, the time series, NFT that you start thinking about not buy, sell NFT, but start leasing out your NFT to earn some kind of, incomes that people could have. There's so many use cases like this. So if people are trying to build something, you don't have to think about it must be a permanent ownership. It must be a permanent transfer. But the developers like us, when we come in, oh, you know what about we set something different? We start thinking about the leasing out NFT. We start building something that we can at least talk about the federated style of ownership, like chain agnostic ownership of NFT. I won't say it is a bullshit, but it is hugely based on interoperability of the layer one that these NFT smart contracts actually deploy to. So when we deploy this smart contract to these, like blockchain, for example, Klaytn, it doesn't mean we own the same on Ethereum or in Parachain or maybe, other chain like that. So what I mean right here is that, is there any way that we can work out like an interoperable ownership pattern, or maybe what I said, like a federated ownership pattern based on the layer one interoperability? So this is something that we have been thinking about at Klaytn that we would like to do. With the interoperability that enable between chain via the layer one like Klaytn, I think our NFT developers or majorly that for different use cases will be benefit from it. I think this is the final slide, but I'm not going to go too deep of it. For the sake of time, I think we still would like to reserve some time for our audience to ask the questions as well. So I talk about how we build and what we can build on Klaytn, but what about on the areas or on the front of how do we attract or maybe we would like to see develop to build with Klaytn? So first of all, I think everybody knows that we are layer one and obviously we're supposed to be open source. So we do, and we are 100% open source, all the core development code that we have, as you can see, going back to this link. And after that, you see so many like Kava, Klaytn core protocol, we are all open source with it. We have the Klaytn docs. Obviously, every layer when they have their docs, but then the Klaytn docs will be open source as well. We are open source with it so that our developers can actually have a look on the manual on what exactly that will be done. TapBlock, I mentioned that we have the ecosystem funding support via the Klaytn 2.0 initiative. It's about 1 billion, but mostly it's grants for the investment or reward. When you look at reward, this is what developers like ourselves will be looking at, which is something we call the proof of contribution programs. We would like to reward the builders or maybe the dev committee moderators. You see so many ambassador director at Klaytn helping on the Q&A. And obviously this is actually via the Klaytn ambassador program. and also funded by the Proof of Contributions program. So what I'm trying to say right here, we will be having a lot of different events that people will be joining us. Like we will have like a bot bounty programs, as I suggested. You can stay tuned with it. We have the dev challenges, coming up with different open, open bot bounty or challenges platform that, as you can see, I'm not going to mention the brand, but once there will be anything that to announce, you will see that on different SNS via the dev communities of both sides, Covalent or Klaytn. We will be building, we think about a very good, I would say not very good strategy, but then this is a very natural flow of thinking how you work with developers, meaning that normally people start thinking about the dev engagement. Oh yeah, you're going to have so many channels with the support, so many channels out there to do the Q&A. You have so many hackathon, then what? Nobody's actually thinking from the dev onboarding. So we're thinking about the dev onboarding strategy, right? That really hardly to actually onboard a lot of Web 2.0 developers. You don't have to have all the Web 3.0, skill set with you, right? That as of today, but there's so many possibility with the Web 2.0 developers market. I would say like a pools, right? That if you compare Web 2.0 developers and Web 3 2.0 developers pools, we talk about 20K, right? That in the Web 3 developers pool. But whilst to the Web 2.0, I think the number is about 27 millions as of today. And you see there's so many ways that we can, so many advantages actually attract a lot of Web 2.0 just to onboard it. And that's the reason at Klaytn, we care a lot and we stress on the dev onboarding. And we are thinking about to build a lot of different samples as a starter case for our sandbox. So when you go to the hackathon, you will be reuse these. And one of the sandbox, I'm quite sure that we're going to mention that anyway down the line. One of the sandbox items that we're going to have will be the integration bit exactly with Covalent. So people can actually have like some sample building with Covalent in our sandbox, and they can always calling for example, the endpoint that Laban just one of the endpoint. If you put your contract address, or maybe you put your account address like that to do different magic like that, we will be enabling that, and we will be having some sample for our developers to get started, to grab some on-chain data from the Klaytn blockchain to build their use cases. But going back, we are hiring. Obviously, I haven't actually touched that point. We have so many roles like that at Klaytn right now. The moments are for grab. And we provide the link right here. You can click into it. And currently, we have not updated that, but you will see there's so many tech roles like that in the coming months, or in the coming weeks, or in the coming days that you will see. We have blockchain dev, DevOps, technical PM, dev advocates. We are looking to hire a lot like that in the market right now. So I mentioned the dev sandbox, where we have the dev infra package, which I mentioned in the first place with the 2.0. There will be so many open source use cases for people to build on metaverse, or maybe their own metaverse use cases. So we have so many metaverse that will be built on ours and have been built on ours. So just say that we are not building one metaverse, but we are essentially a go-to options for these metaverse in the gaming, or maybe the creator economy based NFT project use cases with us and on us. Finally, last but not least, obviously we are planning to have our own Klaytn hackathon in June. We will have more information down the line. Please stay tuned on it on our SNS corporate official answer. I mean the official SNS. There's so many Klaytn SNS right that account, but pick the right one. And obviously just want to go back to it. And I think Laban is going to mention that we're going to have a co-host. And there are so many co-hosts one at Klaytn. One of these will be the, Laban, do you want to just announce it, or I should do this for you? I should do the honor?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we're going to have these, obviously, as you can see from the screen, we have this Klaytn Covalent hackathon coming up in 3 weeks. And obviously Laban's team, the Covalent's team, obviously will be giving a lot more details right there down the line. But I'm quite sure that will be a very interesting one. And there will be, like I said, there will be some reward up for grab. And now that you have the integration bits that the developers can use, things are way more easier than previously without a unified API for people just to grab the on-chain data. So now I would say thank you for Covalent for the really tough work on the integration, and that helped make the Klaytn ecosystem easier for the developers to be on board and build on us. And same thing, I just want to say thank you to the Covalent as a company that you build a lot of interesting and really useful toolings for our developers to get on board to the Web 3.0 world or blockchain world. Thank you for that.
No,
that would be me.
Thank you too, Neo. I think the integration obviously is going to be very helpful for developers, and the hackathon that's coming up in 3 weeks' time, we are very excited about it. We will be announcing further details on the prizes. There will be quite attractive prizes up for grabs, and hopefully the session today, we've gone through things you might want to know about how you're going to start building on the Klaytn network, what kind of ideas you can build. A lot of times hackathons are great places to explore that burning idea that you've always wanted to try, right? And take it there, right? Hopefully, we'll get to see a lot of you developers at the hackathon. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Okay, we have only around 5 minutes left. I think we can open up the floor to any questions, if any, that you guys have. And yeah, anything that you want to ask with regards to Klaytn, with regards to Covalent, how you can get involved, please drop them in the chat. I can go first with a question for Neo if we don't see any. So if I was a developer, right, a Web2 developer, and I've got a couple of ideas of projects like NFT project, or let's say a metaverse project. What would you say is Klaytn's like main focus in some ways? Like, how would you direct a lot of the developers' efforts to, or what's the attractive part about Klaytn for me as a developer that I should take note of?
Yeah, so you can hear me, right? I guess. So I just want to confirm that. Yeah. So as I suggested on the metaverse part, there will be so many use cases and have been so many use cases built on Klaytn. And we realized that, you remember when I mentioned the Klaytn 2.0, when I talk about the open source dev infra package and all this kind of high performing mainnet, it doesn't just come out of we would like to, just improve for the sake of improvement. Is that we see there's so many needs that we need to build the dev infra package. First of all, they have to be all open source, so no closed source. We need to have these toolbox or toolings that we suggested, like the Oracle layer, the IPFS layer, or maybe distributed file storage layer, the smart contract library, the NFT marketplace that will be open source or Chain Explorer. When we keep saying the open source, that we mean it. We would like to open source the whole thing, and then people, especially the developers, they can look at the code and just, I would say fork it, and just to fork it and make changes, and make some use cases right there on these kind of packages that we have, and spice things up. And really the whole thing that we have, the reasons why we like to build an open source dev infra package as a toolbox, so many items, is really just would like to help on board our developers right there, from the open source communities. This is what we exactly would like to do at Klaytn.
I should definitely check out the infra package.
Yeah, so there will be I think after that, maybe for the Covalent ecosystem, or maybe for the Covalent communities right here, we can share the light paper. It's actually everywhere online. We can just share that over, and we do have a lot of advantages that we mentioned right there. I would say I would say, as I mentioned, you will be seeing hackathons, but we are more like on to the challenges and the bug bounty program for our developers down the line. because we see this is some incentive. These are some incentives that can actually, you know, take right away and start building on Klaytn. And as I suggested, if you don't have like a sandbox, it will be really tough to onboard Web 2.0 developers, and we don't want to see that. And we're gonna do, and we are having, you know, we have been doing different things, you know, around the clock, right? That just to get, we need to have some samples. We need to have some samples for people get to use it. But to be honest, there are some samples already. Not saying that we don't have that, but just that I think as a more unified effort, right, that we would like to have one sandbox with the Klaytn brand, and you have all the resources, right, that for the developers, so that the Web 2.0 over to Klaytn development, they could do this. And not to mention that we're supporting Ethereum equivalence, meaning that whatever that you have been doing on the Ethereum ecosystem, things will be happening just the same, because you see, we even support the ETH namespace, right? So this is certainly a very good news to our developers for different you know, communities out there.
Nice. Thanks, Neo. I think if we don't see any more questions, you know, it's a great webinar. It's jam-packed with a lot of information, and hopefully gives you a better idea about how you can get involved in both Klaytn side, or you can try out the Covalent API if you're a developer. And I would just like to thank Neo again for taking your time for this great informative webinar. And stay tuned, everyone, to both our social medias for any opportunities, right? I think Klaytn is quite active on Twitter. We are as well. And yeah, see you, everyone.
I think I do have one closing statement to put right here. So we do have like an integration bit between Covalent and Klaytn finally being completed already. But this doesn't mean that we're not gonna, you know, explore further not relationship, but then further features like that in terms of this integration. So there will be more features that you will see about this integration, about the unified API with Covalent, to grabbing kind of to grab the on-chain data from Klaytn. But I just want to say thank you very much for inviting me today, and I would love to keep talking or speaking or sharing with our economy, kind of the communities like that, with our developers on different ecosystem. Doesn't matter, because we are all in the same blockchain industry. Yeah, thanks for inviting me today, and thanks for having me. I guess we will be uploading this video somewhere as well, so that people can come back to revisit it. That would be me. And thank you very much. If you do have any questions, reach us out on our SNS, social media, or welcome. Have a good evening. Have a good day, everybody. Cheers.
See you guys around.
Bye-bye.
Take care.